want Detroit sports talk done right? Yeah! If you want it, you got it. It's Detroit sports talk with attitude. It's the Knee Jerks with Eno and Big Al.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like at this time to introduce to you one of the finest running backs in the United States of America, and our number one pick, Barry Sanders.
Here's Isaiah. Let's see what we got. All the way up. Go!
We might not be in your car or on your transistor radio, but we're bringing you the best of Detroit sports past, present, and future. It's time for the Knee Jerks with two guys who know Detroit sports. Here's Greg Eno and Al Beaton.
It's Tuesday, September 21st, 2021. It's not only the end of summer, and it's almost the end of Major League Baseball season, and I think it's pretty much the end of the Lions season already, just 2 games in, but it's never the end of the season of the Knee Jerks. So this is the Knee Jerks, Detroit Sports Talk of Eno and Big Al. I'm the Big Al of the equation, Al Beaton, longtime Detroit-based podcaster and blogger. Joining me, as always, is my co-conspirator, partner in crime, the man who knows a lot of things about a lot of things. That would be Greg Eno of numerous places on the web. Greg, what's up?
Hey, Al, it's good to be with you again here on, I think the first day of fall, is the 21st. So happy fall to everybody. We're deep into the football season already, and we'll be talking lots of Lions. We've got some Tigers for you, as well as they wrap up their season. We don't have a guest tonight. We'll be working on getting you some guests in the upcoming weeks. But
who needs a guest when we're so smart and know what we're talking about, you know?
The guests just make us look less smart than we are.
You're right.
So we'll keep you posted on that. But before we get to any of what Al's got cooking on the agenda tonight, we're going to play a game we like to call Whose Birthday Is It, Maestro?
We baked you a birthday cake. If you get a tummy ache and you moan and groan and woe, don't forget we told you so. Happy birthday! Happy birthday!
Everybody knows how we play this game by now. I'll give Al a clue or 2 or 3 of an individual whose birthday it is today in the world of sports. And if Al can correctly guess that person within the first 2 clues, he will receive the entire box set of Beretta.
Oh, God. What's that? What was that theme song? Something Sparrow or the Eye of the... God damn it. Now I can picture the theme song and that damn cockatoo.
It was sung by Sammy Davis Jr., exactly. I think.
Yeah.
Don't do the crime if you can't do the time or something like that.
Because I remember watching that, and I think Starsky and Hutch and Beretta were back-to-back.
It wasn't his catchphrase, that's the name of that tune or something like that?
It was that bank, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's the name of that tune. I think
that's the name of that. Maybe that was it, yeah. Oh, my goodness, yeah. Oh, God. Why don't we just start doing a podcast about 70s television?
No kidding. No kidding. Okay, here's the first clue. This person, Al, made his career in the world of basketball. He was born on this date in 1958. He's still very much with us. He was he wasn't a big scorer, but he was a frontline player who, let's just say, threw his weight around. I'll leave it there.
And what did you say? How old did you say he is? What was it?
He's 63. He was born in 58. 63.
And you're basically saying he's fat.
Well, he threw his weight around.
He was
a front court player who was not the nicest guy. Let's put it that way on the court.
A front court player who wasn't the nicest guy, and he's now in his early 60s, which would mean he played about 30-some years ago. Which would, oh geez, how about Rick Mahorn?
Oh my God. Oh my God! No way did I think you were going to get that.
I almost said Jeff Ruland. So
well, that was I mean McFilthy and McNasty, as Johnny Most used to call them. But I thought you were going to. I for sure thought you were going to guess Lambier. I thought for sure you were going to guess Lambier. He was born right around that time too, and Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Rick Mahorn was born on this date in 1958. He was out of one of the few NBA players I know that came out of Hampton.
Yeah.
He was drafted in 1980 by the Bullets. You mentioned Ruland. He was teamed up with Ruland to form that front court with the Bullets, and then, of course, the big trade to the Pistons. And there wasn't a sadder day, I don't think, Al, for Detroit sports when Rick was picked by the expansion Timberwolves. I think right.
It was the day of the parade.
Right, exactly. And Jack McCloskey had to pull him aside during the festivities and tell him that he'd been selected by the Timberwolves, who then traded him almost immediately to the Sixers.
Yep.
And of course, he's doing radio right now with George Blaha for the Pistons. Right. So, happy birthday, Rick! And you get the box set of Beretta,
which I just looked up, and the name of the song is "Keep Your Eye on the Sparrow."
Okay.
And it is Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And it's essentially, I remember this as well from being my teenage years, is that actually it was kind of, I don't know if you remember the TV series Toma.
Of course.
This was essentially, that only went a year, and then this was kind of, they reworked it with Robert Blake as a star instead and named it Beretta. So, but I'm still trying to remember what the hell was it.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
You're right. Toma was based on a real guy named David Toma.
David Toma.
And Tony Musanti played Toma and did not want to do the show. Musanti was hired and said, I'll do the show for a year. And they said, well, we'll see about that. After the 1 year was over, they said, okay, you're going to re-up. He said, no, I said it was only going to for 1 year.
He was a serious actor, and that was back when if you did TV, you weren't considered a serious actor.
Right. He said, I told you I was going to do 1 year, and I meant it.
Yep. So they changed it to Beretta and Robert Blake.
Yeah. Good job. Yeah, good job there. Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Now that we've gotten our TV trivia out of the way for the night. All right, yeah. Okay, next show, we're going to, let's see, we'll talk about, how about Hunter?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with Fred Dryer.
Fred Dryer, yeah, sure.
See, that way we can get both the TV and the sports mixed together there with that. So,
right.
Oh, good Lord. All right, with that, let's get talking, I guess, a lot of Detroit Lions, because honestly, there's not much going on for Red Wings. They're kind of treading water till the training camp. I know they have the prospect tournament's been going on, but whatever. I'm not going to pay too much attention to that. As long as everybody comes out of that unscathed, that's all you care about. And obviously the Pistons, nothing much going on with them either, just getting contracts together. So we'll get ready. They both are just training ball for training camp. We'll talk a little Tigers if we got some time, because there's been another shakeup with the coaching staff at the minor league level. But honestly, I think the vast majority of this podcast, if not all of it, is going to be about the Detroit Lions. We really haven't talked a lot of Lions, Greg. We're able to touch on them a little bit here and there during the exhibition season. I refuse to call it preseason. But we've had 2 games since we've last talked. The Lions started their season. They're 0-2, as I think pretty much everybody expected. They are who we thought they were. They're not a very good team. They 0-2. Week 1, they lost 41-33 at home to the Niners. Yesterday, week 2, they lost 30-17 to the Packers as Aaron Rodgers looked much more like his old self, a man who always destroys the Lions. Week 3 isn't looking much better, Greg. This weekend, Lamar Jackson, who looked otherworldly against Kansas City on Sunday Night Football, him and the Ravens come to town. So odds are pretty damn good the Lions are going to start the season 0-3. I don't see that defense being able to do anything with Lamar Jackson at all. But other than I'm sure I know there was a segment of the Lions fan base who thought, there might, they could win some games and maybe sniff the wild card. I think people are finally accepting the reality, at least I hope they are, that this is a bad team who was left in awful shape by the previous regime. And it's going to take a couple years for them to right the ship, specifically defensively, because that defense, Greg, is horrific.
Yeah, they're thin. They're thin. They don't. It's just, gosh, Al, it's the same old stuff. We've been talking about this defense, and with similar adjectives for so long now. You know,
Yeah.
they don't have no speed, no depth, no this, no that, no pass rush, blah, 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 blah. Although they did get to Rodgers a few times Monday night, but they really barely touched Garoppolo on opening day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're just, they're thin, they're young. These guys that are playing in the backfield, I don't even know who they are. I really don't. Some of these names that I saw last night in Green Bay, I hadn't heard of before, really.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know that injuries don't help, but they were already thin before that. But they're thin. They don't have a lot of speed as usual or explosive players. Certainly the linebackers are among the worst set of linebackers in the whole NFL. And you get a guy like Rodgers who had a very bad taste in his mouth after that first week in New Orleans or against New Orleans. And then here we go against the Lions. It's just like, shooting fish in a barrel. It just, I think he threw 4 touchdown passes and was just, as ever efficient as he's ever been against the Lions. So yeah, they're in tough shape. I said at the beginning of the year I thought they'd win 4, possibly 5 games. I can't see them winning that many. I know it's early, but from what I've seen so far, if they win 2 or 3, that's probably about right. Because in the NFL, every dog has his day, sort of. Every blind squirrel finds a nut. I'm sure they'll manage a couple of wins, probably at Ford Field against somebody. But they're not. That is not an NFL caliber defense. But again, they're young. It's a rebuild, and the roster. It's just worse than I thought it was. But they like you said, it does not get any easier with the Ravens coming in this week, and that could get ugly. And but people around the league seem to. I mean, the Monday night. I thought the Monday night, the Monday night announcers, both in terms of the people that were doing the game, the halftime people, the post game people, even Eli and Peyton Manning on their little thing. I thought they were kind to the Lions. They say, look, they're rebuilding here. There's something there. They've got some fight. I like Dan Campbell. I like their coaches. They're building something here. They're trying to turn the ship around. They weren't, they weren't throwing any shade. They didn't make fun of them. They just, I think they were kind to what the situation was.
Right.
Sometimes the national people can get a little bit smarmy, but I thought that they didn't. I thought the national people were very, respectful of what the Lions are trying to do. And, it's about the start that I thought 0-2, but you're right. The defense is really, really bad.
I guess the issue I have with the Lions right now, Greg, is I'm hearing an awful lot of moral victory crap. This team is they're playing to the end of the game. No, they're not giving up. And it was so familiar to what I heard. I'm sure you remember after the end of after the 2019 loss to the Chiefs, where this fan base and half the media treated that game like a victory, even though they lost. Nothing was ever built from that game. They lost the next week, and obviously we know how that regime ended up. So, I'm not going to get excited over a fluky loss, a game that was only close because it was a fluke. Because you can't guarantee. Recovering an onside kick in today's NFL, that happens once out of 100 tries. And then again, they also had to recover a fumble on a play where if the guy just falls down, they have a first down and the game's over. So the game was nowhere near as close as the final score. But I'm hearing, I think you were mentioning about, we kind of like what we're seeing in Detroit right now. I am not even going to even go there yet because it's way too early to make any kind of determination what's going on with the Lions. Dan Campbell talks a good game. Brad Holmes, the jury's still out, it's way too early to go on what he's done with his draft picks and free agency and trades. So I'm not going to buy into this. The Lions might be on to something here because I heard the same thing
that's true.
with Bobby Ross. I heard the same thing with Steve Mariucci. I heard the same thing with Jim Schwartz. I heard the same thing with Jim Caldwell. Hell, we heard the same thing with Quinn Tricia. I'm hearing right now, the Lions got a coach they'll run through a wall for.
Yeah.
Well, didn't we hear the same damn thing about Jim Schwartz, and that completely imploded? Or we heard how much the players loved playing for Jim Caldwell, and he just couldn't get over the hump.
Right.
So Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, they talk a good game, but that's all it is right now. It's talk. And if you look on the field, they're nowhere near where they need to be, and that's understandable because this team is at least you got to give them 3 years. Because the very least, even going by Lions history, Schwartz took an 0-16 team and had them in the playoffs 3 years later.
Yeah.
So I think that's the kind of window we're looking for here. Is that I'm going to make a determination for them. The odds are I will make a determination on how good or bad this regime is 2.5, 3 years from now. It's way too early to make any kind of this is the right guy at the right time kind of thing because it's just it's too early. There's no talent here. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to see a head coach that's probably going to do things he may not normally do because to win games, he's got to take major risk. And I think we're seeing that with how Campbell is treating fourth downs, for example. He's going for it quite a bit because he knows he has a defense that can't stop anybody, so he's got to keep the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I have no problem with going for it on fourth down. I really don't. I mean, that's.
Oh, I don't either. I love it personally.
It's refreshing. I think more and more coaches are doing it. I think there was a statistic, and I can't remember what it was, but there was a number that indicated that going for it on fourth down isn't as big of a risk as you might think it is. Now, of course, that has to do with how long, fourth down and what. But for the most part, teams go for it if it's 4th and 2 or less. If they're going to go for it, unless it's late in the game and they have to go for it.
Right.
But the numbers say that it's not that big of a risk to go for it. The Lions were in that game against the Packers, they had fallen behind 21-17 and they were deep in their territory.
Yeah.
4th and 1. I had no qualms with going for it in that scenario, but. Back to what you were saying about, I've heard it all before in moral victories. There's nothing else to talk about.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a national guy and you don't want to crap on the Lions. All you have to go to is that narrative of it's a rebuild, and it is a rebuild. Now this team was never going to be good. We knew that. This was not going to be anywhere near a 500 team, but.
Right.
The one thing that might come out of this, and I can't speak for I don't think this is necessarily true of the linebackers, because I think that's a different kind of a skill set. But I think that what might be a good thing is that this young secondary is going to get a lot of experience this year. Now, some of that's going to be baptism by fire because of the situation. But if there are guys that Holmes and Campbell want to stick around for years 2 and 3, like you're talking about, in terms of that opening window.
Right.
Well, there's no better way to find out about. You only play 3 exhibition games now. There's no better way to find out about these kids than to let them play in the NFL.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to, we'll see what happens. If any of these guys are going to be on the team next year, who knows? Maybe none of them will be. I have no idea. But this is right now a bunch of no names who these opposing quarterbacks have just got to be licking their chops every week going up against these guys. But the other thing too, Al, and this is part of your narrative that you were talking about moral victories, is that the Lions hung with the Packers for a half. They had that comeback against the 49ers. But we all know that this league, the NFL is perfectly set up to separate for the cream to rise to the top. You've got, and it's not even just within an entire season, but within a 60-minute game. How many times have you seen a weaker team hang with a stronger team for maybe 45, even 50 minutes? And then it's usually most of the time, that team that's supposed to win the game wins the game. Whether it's because they've made a play, the other team can't make a play, something happens that whatever you name it. But ultimately, I know the league is hard to pick against the spread, but I'm just talking about just who's supposed to win the games, period. Forget the spread. Usually the teams that are favored win. And they usually don't win big. I mean, there are a lot of these games come down to the last, quarter, half a quarter.
Right.
Not Monday night's game again. That didn't.
Right.
But there are a lot of games that come down to the last, 5, 6, 7 minutes of the game. And usually the team that's supposed to win wins because they've got, for whatever reason, they've got more talent. They've got a better coach. They're this, they're that. They have more playmakers, whatever. So, that's why you don't get excited anymore if the Lions are leading a game at halftime like they were Monday night, 17-14, because you know that there's still 30 minutes to play. And sure enough, they were outscored, 21-0 in the second half. Yeah. Everything else seemed to go sideways after that failed fourth down. Even though they were already losing at that point, they just seemed to really, that fourth down miss really seemed to just grease the skids for the rest of the night. And then, of course, Rodgers did his thing and Aaron Jones and so forth. But, but there's nothing else to talk about. I mean, there's no other narrative but to say things like they'll run through a wall for the coach and he's this and he's that. And there's nothing else to talk about. I mean, I suppose you could just talk endlessly about how untalented they are and how thin they are and that they have no depth. You could talk about that until you're blue in the face, I guess. But that's, either way, this team, I don't care how you color it, this team's not going to win more than 3 games. Yeah. Period.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's what people, fail to realize sometimes, or they ignore it or tend to brush it aside, especially when it comes to fans, is that the vast majority of NFL games are one-score games. I mean, look at the Vegas spreads. I think even this game was only 8 or 9 points. And that's a big spread for an NFL game. Vast majority of NFL spreads are 3 points, 5 points, 6 points. Because as you said, the NFL is designed for parity. It's designed for close games. It's designed for most games to keep you interested well into the fourth quarter. So I'm not taking much from these 2 wins. The first one was too fluky of an ending, and this one was more, this is what I expected going in. But defensively, they are decimated, especially on the back 7, specifically at cornerback, where, one thing I did have to kind of chuckle last night is they're saying, you had the Monday Night Football crew saying, the Lions are without their best cover corner, Jeff Okudah, who tore his Achilles. Yeah. If Jeff Okudah is your best cover corner,
but
you're in deep shit.
But he is.
Because he has been awful since he came in the league.
But he probably is. I mean,
that's the scary part.
If for no other reason than by default. Yeah. No, you're right. I caught that. You're right. They said that a few times. Somebody on Twitter said, geez, these guys are talking about Okudah like he's Darrelle Revis. Yeah. But they're just trying to illustrate, where this team is in terms of injuries. But honest to God, there were a lot of guys, I'm not kidding, who I saw in uniform last night who I didn't know who they were. I really didn't. Yeah. It's like, when did we get these? When did they? I don't remember them signing this kid. Who's this? Who's that? And but again, they're going to play. They're going to get lots of playing time, and they're going to. It's not going to be pretty. But if nothing else, Campbell and Holmes will maybe have an idea of who they're going to. This is all about who we're going to keep on the roster in 2022, and who's not going to be here. And I suspect there are a good 15 to 20 of these guys, both on offense and defense, won't be here next year. Right. They just won't be. And this is just the first of a few, at least a couple of lean years. Holmes has got to make something happen with these draft picks. That trade that he made with the Rams for Stafford, where he got all those draft picks back, right? Which I still think was a good trade. But he's got these draft picks have got to become the core of his rebuild, because he's got, I think, 5 number 1 picks over the next 3 drafts, and he's got that has got to be your bread and butter of this rebuild. And they need to bring in linebackers who can play. They need to bring in pass rushers and secondary people, of course, and receivers. So many holes. The only real part of the team that does not have holes, really, is the offensive line.
Right.
Other than that, we don't even know, Al. We don't even know who the quarterback's going to be in a couple of years. We really don't. I still kind of maintain that Jared Goff is this place setter. He'll be here this year and, of course, next year. Beyond that, I can't tell you. I can't, with any definitive confidence, say that in 2023 Jared Goff will be the quarterback.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. That's and he's another guy that I really can't go in on a judgment on him.
Yeah.
Because he has no weapons.
Yeah.
I mean, I brought up as I put in the notes about the numbers of the receiving core right now.
Yeah.
And wide receiver, they're getting nothing, literally nothing out of the wideout. He's got his two weapons. There's Hawkinson, who's been all pro level.
Sure.
He's got 163 yards and 2 TDs in 2 games, and then and DeAndre Swift has been their weapon out of the backfield.
Right.
Coming out of the backfield. But the 4 wide receivers that have caught passes have combined for 23 catches, 241 yards, a lame 10 yards per catch, and just 2 touchdowns. And those 2 touchdowns are both from one guy, Quintez Cephas.
Right.
So, Goff has his issues, to say at the very least. Now, he much prefers a check down. He doesn't take shots downfield, at least very rarely.
Right.
He obviously has problems holding on to the ball, as we saw in the game against the Packers, and that's always been a career issue of him. Yeah. But as good as a quarterback, good or bad, a quarterback, especially of Goff's caliber, who I think is legit to say he is at the very least a better than average quarterback. I think it'd be very fair to say. Considering he has taken a team to the Super Bowl, even though that was a very good team. I think you could put if Matthew Stafford, to put it this way, Matthew Stafford had the wideouts that Goff's throwing to. Mm-hmm. People would want Stafford's head on a stick because they, as much as part of the fan base hated Stafford or wanted him gone, Stafford couldn't do anything with these receivers. Because there's no separation, there's no speed. None of these guys are getting open deep.
Right.
And none of them are. Kenny Galladay was not an all-pro receiver, but he was probably a Pro Bowl level receiver. Any receiver they have on his roster dreams of being as good as Kenny Galladay. Hell, he probably dreams of being as good as David Kirkus. That's how bad they are. So how's that a name from the past? Certainly Kirkus, but. Or Willie Green, the touchdown machine. How's that?
There you go. There you go.
But to get back on track, the wide receivers are bad. Yeah. And what little money they did invest at wide receiver, part of that went right out the window when they when they cut Perriman. Right. Who they thought was going to be their number 1 or number 2 guy, and it turns out he was their number 0 guy.
Yep.
So wide receiver, when your best receiver is a 5th-round pick out of Wisconsin last year, and is known as essentially when they say he's a possession receiver, that means he can't run. He runs good routes. Yeah, because he's not fast. He can't run by anybody. I mean, that your wide receiver core is in trouble. But we knew that coming in.
Yeah.
Which I guess leads me to Greg, is that everything we've seen wrong with the Lions so far, with the passing game that it has nothing going on deep, the defense that can't stop anybody, a quarterback who is being paid a lot of money but has some major issues. We knew all this going into the season, so I guess I don't know why anybody would be surprised that this team is 0-2. It's likely going to be 0-3, and as you say, will likely win 3 games. I think if everything goes right, they win 5. I mean, if everything goes perfectly, they might win 6. I think the coaching staff, to their credit, realizes that, because Dan Campbell is on record saying, we have no margin for error, we can't make mistakes. And as we've seen in the first 2 games, the minute this team starts to make mistakes, they played a pretty darn good first half against Green Bay. But as soon as they started making mistakes, everything went sideways. The game went right off the rails, and the Packers walked away. And for that matter, so did San Francisco. So the Lions are, in the famous words of, goddamn, how come I can't remember who said they are who we thought they were? Dennis Green. Dennis Green. Yeah, Denny Green said. They are who we thought they were. Well, that fits the Lions to a T. They are who we thought they were. We thought they were a bad team, and they're living up to those very, very low expectations.
Well, the thing about the defense is the back seven clearly.
Yeah.
And those are the guys that are the biggest.
Yeah, Anzalone and Collins who look lost out there. They can't keep up with anybody.
Yeah, right. The back seven guys are just awful. Now, unfortunately, they're not getting a whole. They're doing okay against the run. Okay against the run defensively. Okay.
Right.
But they're still not. Again, like I mentioned before, they didn't really touch Garoppolo that much in the first week. They did get to Rodgers a couple of times last night. That's true. They got 2 or 3 sacks last night, but the Packers had 2 rookies on their offensive line too. By the way, I'm not seeing Al, and even the Monday night announcer said it last night. They said because Trey Flowers had made made a play, and somebody said, "Boy, this was in the second half," and they said, "Boy, we haven't said Trey Flowers' name a lot." And how many times have you heard that? Right. By announcers doing Lions games? Boy, we haven't said Trey Flowers' name very much. He's another guy, Al, that has not lived up to the hype on the contract that Quinn Trisha gave him because, again, of their relationship in New England. And he's another guy, another cautionary tale of how how free agency in football, pro football, is so fraught with. That's just it never seems to work out real well when you sign a big time free agent. It just doesn't seem to be. You never seem to get the bang for the buck that you thought you were going to get in. With Flowers, he hasn't done much as a Lion. I mean, now you could say that part of it's because he's playing for the Lions, but really individually, I don't think. I mean, he's still probably one of their better guys, if only because, again, kind of by default. But he's not, Al. He's not this guy that you have to game plan for. They've got a lot of guys who are okay, like Brockers and Williams and Flowers, and they've got some guys who are okay. That are probably, if this was baseball, maybe like our zero WAR guys, or maybe a little bit above that if this was baseball. But they're not stars, so they're not going to bust up plays. They're not going to be in your backfield all day. They're not Aaron Donald. I know there's only a few people who are, but they're nowhere near that caliber. They're not destructive. They're not going to disrupt things. Everybody in the NFL can get a sack every now and then. Everybody in the NFL can stuff a run every now and then. They don't have anybody that does that on a consistent basis. But like you said, though, none of this is a surprise. I think I'm a little bit taken aback. Maybe I wasn't paying that much attention in the off season with the OTAs and training camp. I'm a little bit taken aback at how bad the roster is. I knew it wasn't going to be good. I knew it, but I'm a little taken aback at how bad it really is. Now we'll see where we are down the line, but right now, this is a worse roster than I thought, and I didn't think it was very good to begin with. So and it's not been helped by injury at all, but this is really slim pickings here.
Yeah, and just to drive home the Flowers, his numbers are so far in 2 games, 7 tackles, 2 assists, half a sack, and this is a guy they're paying $90 million and change.
Yeah,
and this is a contract they're going to have to eat after this season because he's not going to stay.
Yeah, he's going to get cut.
Yeah, and the same with Collins, Jamie Collins, who was another Quinn Trisha special, another New England guy, who looks like he's completely lost whatever he had. He has, he was a guy who when they signed him, he was I believe 30 years old, and it looks like it's caught up with him at this point. So. Right. So again, that's another reason why it's going to take some time to figure things out, because after this season, they're going to be eating some big contracts, specifically Flowers and Collins, probably a couple other guys, and for that matter, who knows? They might eat Goffs for all we know.
Right.
So this is it's going to get ugly this year, even though I think most sane fans expected it. It's still not going to be very pleasant to watch, and I think a lot played into it is this is the last team of the 4 pro teams to admit they're rebuilding. So all the frustrations are going to be thrown at the Lions when you factor in the 60 years of flailing about. Now they're actually rebuilding. When you got the Tigers look like they're coming out of their rebuild in pretty decent shape. The Pistons look like they're really starting to make some progress. And the Wings have a very, very smart front office who have a long leash at this point and seem to be making some very good moves. Then you got the Lions with a completely unproven staff, especially coaching staff and front office, and they're saying be patient. We need some time. That's to their credit though. Dan Campbell is saying, I'm not buying into that same old Lions stuff. I'm not happy we're losing. We want to win games. Blah blah blah. But I'm sure in the back of their minds they're thinking, this is at least a 2-3 year project.
Let me ask you this question. Are you surprised that the Lions gave Campbell 6 years?
Yes, I was, because that's where anybody gets that long of a contract in the NFL, unless you're not named John Gruden.
Right.
Who got, and I thought that contract was ridiculous when he got 10.
Okay, now second part of that question is, do you think that the 6 years could be a good thing for him or a bad thing? And where I'm going with this is, if a guy has that long, first of all, it's good for the guy at its face value because it's security. But from a strictly chance of success standpoint, is it better to have a guy, Al, on that long of a leash, or is it better to have given a guy 3 years, maybe 4, where there's a little bit more urgency? And I know it's a rebuild, I get it.
Yeah.
But 6 years for a guy who's only been an interim coach for 12 games in the NFL, what are your thoughts about that?
I think that's the difference. I thought it was a bit much because he has no track record.
Right.
It'd be one thing to give a long contract, as I mentioned to John Gruden. At least the guy has a track record of winning.
Right.
Or for that matter, I mean, I could have believed it if Millen had given Mariucci a 6-year contract. I have no idea. I don't even remember what it was at this point. But yeah, I could see a guy with an established NFL track record, or for that matter, an established college pedigree, like there was rumors that Iowa State's coach, was it Matt? Matt Anderson? Is that his name?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember his name, but you know who I'm talking about. Who has really made a name for himself the last couple of years, and apparently he was the Lions' first choice for the job, and they were going to offer him a monster deal. I think it was going to be like 8 years or something like that. So, I thought 6 was a bit much. I could understand the reasoning behind it, but I just don't see giving that kind of security. Matt Campbell, that's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah, right, Matt Campbell.
Yeah, right. Matt Campbell.
Right. Yeah,
Matt Anderson. That's the old reliever for the Tigers. There was rumors that the Lions were offering Campbell like 8 years to come to Detroit, and then he turned them down. I don't blame him. I mean, he's got it made at Iowa State. You win 9 games a year at Iowa State, they'll raise a statue to you. So much like it probably would in Detroit for that matter, but I digress. I thought 6 years for Dan Campbell, whose only track record was that less than half a season in Miami when he took over as interim coach. I thought it was a bit much. I understand why they did it because I think the the ownership, Ford ownership, Sheila. I think they saw just how bad this team was, just how bad the roster it was left in shambles, and they were probably going to have to overpay to get who they wanted, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
So that's why, once they were sold on Dan Campbell, to sell Dan Campbell, they got to say, okay, we're going to give you a long leash, so here's a 6-year deal. I think that might have played into it, that was maybe that would be if you want to get the guy you really want that you're targeting, you overpay for him a little bit to get him to come to Detroit. But I guess the question is, the Lions are probably bidding against themselves, because I don't think Dan Campbell was exactly a hot head coach ticket when it came to around the league. Everybody was talking about guys like Eric Bieniemy, who didn't get a job. So, yeah, but to go back to your question, yeah, I thought it was an overpay. I think it's a bit much. 4 years, I think, is more than enough for any organization, especially the way the NFL is designed to turn things around. We saw the Lions turn things around in 3 years. We just saw the Browns turn themselves around in about a 3-year period. So, yeah, I guess again, this is more, I hate to say wait and see kind of thing, but we'll see in a year or two if this 6-year cushion causes them to be a little more, as you put it, not to have as much urgency to fix things. Maybe to let things ride a little bit with their quote-unquote guys, because all coaches have their guys. We saw that with who Patricia brought in. So maybe they will maybe they'll have a little more. They'll have a little more leeway with Goff, for example, because he's Holmes' guy. Even though they got him in the trade, they had to take him to make the contracts work with the Stafford deal, but still Holmes has a connection to Goff. He was part of the team that scouted him and drafted him. So, yeah, I think you're onto something there. It might be a concern, especially if we're 2 years in and we're still not seeing the progress we would expect to see from an NFL team in a rebuilding mode. So 4 years I would have expected. When they said 6, my jaw dropped. It really did.
Yeah, there's really the only thing that the Lions have not tried in all the time that you and I have followed the team, which is about 50 years. The one thing that they really have not tried is they've not brought in a really established big name, big time guy as coach. Now I know there aren't a lot of those around. I get it, but in 50 years they have not gone out and gotten. I remember.
Well, I would say this to play devil's advocate. I think there might be 3 actually in 50 years. Don McCaffrey, who won the Super Bowl with the Colts. Bobby Ross, who took the Chargers to the Super Bowl and won a national championship with Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
And Steve Mariucci, who made it to the NFL Finals.
Now, Mariucci, I will give you, although that was poorly vetted.
Yeah, there's a lot of other issues with that hire. Yeah, you're right about that.
He did not. There was a disconnect between Mariucci's bailiwick and what the Lions were, and there was a big disconnect between Mariucci and Joey Harrington, and there was a lot of. Right. Matt Millen was starry-eyed, saw what Mariucci had done in a short period of time in San Francisco. And
the entire league knew that's who he wanted.
Right. So, but I'll give you that in terms of hiring a big-name coach. Yeah, at the time, you're right. Yeah. At the time, Mariucci was considered a big-name coach. Yeah. Ross, I know where you're going with that, but I don't know if Bobby Ross was considered around NFL circles as being one of the elite coaches in the NFL. A lot of guys have gone to the NFL, to the Super Bowl as coaches and have lost. Yeah. I'm not poo-pooing it because it's hard to get to the Super Bowl. Right. But there's a big difference between winning it and losing it. McCaffrey, well, the jury's, unfortunately, he was only here for 1 year because he passed away. But I mean, again, McCaffrey was. How much of it was McCaffrey? How much of it was of Don Shula having left? I don't know. A McCaffrey coach, I think Shula had left like 1 or 2 years before, the year before actually. Yeah. And so I think McCaffrey won the Super Bowl his first year in Baltimore, but essentially with Shula's players. Yeah. But I know what you're saying, but there hasn't been, I'm talking a big name, really, really big name. But they seem to, they hire these. Campbell, I understand why Campbell would want. I understand why these guys would want the job because everybody. I mean, being an NFL head coach is still a very prestigious thing. I get that. I don't, and everybody thinks they can be the guy who's going to turn things around in Detroit. And it's just not that easy. And, but maybe now, Al, with the GM and the coach coming in at the same time,
right?
Maybe that might help. I don't know. I can't remember the last time that has happened in Detroit, where you've had maybe Millen when he came in and he brought in Morningwig.
Yeah.
But where a GM and a coach have come in at the same time, and here we are with a first-time GM and a first-time head coach. Not normally the recipe for success, but at the same time, both of these guys have been around a little bit and have, so we'll see.
Yeah.
But this is just, it's going to be very, very ugly before this year's over with. No question.
Yeah. To say the very least. And just for giggles, I did look up Bobby Ross's record in San Diego. He was 47-33 with a .588 win percentage. I was surprised it was that good, to be honest with you.
With Stan Humphries as quarterback.
Yeah, so. He never had a losing season. His worst record in San Diego, he had 2 8 years, and then those are the years that made the playoffs. So.
And the Chargers were really bad when he took them over.
Yeah, exactly. The Lions, well, the wheels fell off, and we all know how. Just thinking back to the Bobby Ross implosion. Yeah, it's laughable. You can laugh about it now. It was absolutely painful to watch, to see a man literally lose his mind as the Lions head coach in Bobby Ross. Then again, it's happened to a few guys like Ross and we could go for hours just about the Lions' history and head coaches. So, but yeah, but I guess since we've been harping on how bad this team is, I guess we should talk about a little bit of the positives. And that should be the offensive line. And specifically, though, now that gives us a controversy at left tackle. Taylor Decker was expected to miss at least a month. He was placed on IR right before the season started. He had surgery on a finger. He's expected to miss at least a month. So rather than try to plug the left tackle hole with a backup, they decided to take their first-round pick, Penei Sewell, and just move him from right tackle where he had been working all offseason, plug him in at left tackle, and then use their swing tackle, their backup tackle on the right side. And Sewell, who was the youngest player in the NFL at 20 years old, I believe they mentioned during the game that he may be the youngest guy to have ever started an NFL game at left tackle.
Yeah.
He has been anywhere from very good to dominant at the position. And now that leaves the question, is Taylor Decker been Wally Pipp'ed? And, because from all accounts, everything I've read from guys who really know about offensive line play, like Jeff Schwartz, who played in the NFL for 10 years and now is a media guy. And after the first game, he said, the Lions should never move Sewell away from left tackle. They got their left tackle for the next decade. He's better than Taylor Decker. And Decker is a pretty darn good player. He's not a great player, but he's a good player. And they just inked him to, a 4 or 5 year deal last offseason, a year ago. And he's being paid big money. So now the question is, what do you do here? You got Sewell, who is just, from all accounts, he's got, Joe Thomas-like talent, Hall of Fame level talent at the most important offensive line position. Then you got the veteran Decker, who is not going to lose his job because of performance. He's going to lose a job because of injury. And then your options are: does Decker say, okay, for the good of the team, I'll move the right tackle, or will the Lions be forced to move Sewell back to right tackle, plug Decker back in, and then decide what to do in the offseason? Because right now, Sewell has gone. He looks like he was born to play left tackle. There's, he's going to make mistakes as a rookie, but when you don't hear his name being called and you don't hear him that, oh my God, Sewell has just been beat. He just gave up a quarterback pressure, blah, blah, blah. And that's from a 20-year-old rookie. What's he going to be like in a couple years? You're talking an all-pro level talent. So that leaves the Lions of a question. What do you do with Taylor Decker? Will he be, or do you move Sewell back? Do you put Decker at left tackle? Do you trade Decker? What do you do? It's a good problem to have, but it's still, quote unquote, a problem, because I don't know if Decker signed a big contract to play left tackle. So what do you do? Do you think that this and Taylor Decker has been a left tackle his entire life too, much like Sewell. So this is something. This, I think, may be the first. This will be the first. We'll see how Dan Campbell rides the waves of how he figures this out, because you got a veteran, a leader of the offensive line, who may lose his job due to injury, and everybody says, yeah, he deserves to lose his job. How do you handle that? I don't know how the Lions are going to handle that, because you can't trade him. You can't, at least not right now, because this contract is too big. You take too big of a hit. You can't match up contracts with another team. You can't deal him for just draft picks right now because of the contract. So I don't know what the Lions do if they plug Decker back in. Do they move Sewell back to right tackle? From all accounts, moving Sewell back to right tackle is the wrong thing to do. And I would not want to be Dan Campbell having that conversation with Taylor Decker.
Isn't this so Lions? Isn't this just a typical Lions problem to have? Yeah. With a lot of teams, it's like, it's almost considered, this is, like you said, this is a nice problem to have. But with the Lions, it doesn't seem that way. It seems like instead of it being a nice problem to have, it seems like it's another plan that's being sidetracked. Yeah. I don't know the answer to the question. I know that Hank Fraley, who's the offensive line coach, said last week that as far as I'm concerned, Taylor Decker is going to go back to left tackle when he gets back from injury. Right. Penei Sewell will go back to right tackle, and that's going to be the end of it. Now, you're right that Sewell has acquitted himself pretty well. He was bull rushed one time by Bosa in week 1, but who hasn't been? And he did a pretty good job in Green Bay. I agree. He was, like you said, if you don't hear the name being called, at least live. I mean, you may see his name being called as they do a replay and they show how a hole was made. But you're right. I thought he acquitted himself well in Green Bay. And the other thing about Sewell, Al, not only is he 20, but he didn't play last year. Don't forget, he did not play last year because of COVID and so forth. So now this is a kid that essentially has played 1 year of college. Yeah. And yes, you're right about talent and everything like that. And now it's all going to be, how does he mature as an NFL player? He's this young kid. He's 20. He's like almost like a raw, unmolded thing here. I know a lot of coaches would love to get their hands on a kid like this, but I don't know how good he really is going to be, of course. But the left tackle, right tackle thing, I just think that this is. But I think he was drafted to be the right tackle, maybe a guard, but he was drafted to be a swing guy, essentially, although they wanted him to be right tackle. Uh-huh. Well, then he should be right tackle. I mean, I get it that he's played well in a couple of games.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Is it wasting Sewell's talent by playing him at right tackle at a less important position?
I
know how you solve the problem. You get a left-handed quarterback.
There you go. You have to have good tackle play, period. Yeah. People treat right tackles like redheaded stepchildren. I mean, you still have to have good right tackle play. You can't just, it's not a throwaway. So, we'll just it's like in Little League where you put the worst kid in right field. You still got to have a good player at right tackle. Yeah. So in that regard, it isn't a good problem to have. Yeah. But with the Lions, it just becomes something more sinister, because now you're creating these problems where there really isn't a problem, and everybody should probably just keep it simple and say, you know what, good job, Penei, at left tackle. It's nice to know that if Taylor Decker ever goes down again, then you can slide over and we don't have any qualms about that. But meanwhile, we drafted you to be right tackle, and that's where you're going to be. Yeah. Taylor Decker is obviously not chopped liver. He's Pro Bowl caliber himself, and he's obviously much more established in the league than Sewell is. So you're right that he should lose his job because of talent. But nor should he lose his job for injury, frankly. Yeah. I think he should come back. And the last thing the Lions want to do right now, anyway, Al, is piss off any sort of what few good veterans they have. Yeah. They don't have a lot of them. And the last thing you want to do is piss a guy off like Decker when it's not necessary. Yeah. You've got to go by seniority here, and Decker's proven that he's a Pro Bowl caliber left tackle. He's one of the best left tackles in football. So this shouldn't even be a question. Just because Sewell has played well there doesn't mean he doesn't. It's like in hockey. If you play well at center, doesn't mean you are a center. I mean, if you're a natural winger, but you happen to acquit yourself well at center for a little while, and the star center comes back, you go back to the wing. I mean, that's just the way it should be. So we'll see how they handle it.
Yeah. I just had to laugh when he called the right tackles the redheaded step kids of the offensive line. You know what position I played in high school? I was a right tackle. Oh, shit. That's just how we're treated. That's how they were treated because you're not protecting the blind side. Yeah, like I said, you can solve the problem. Get yourself a left-handed quarterback. Get Tua Tagovailoa. You're all set. Now you got your best tackle protecting the blind side of your quarterback. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I have a feeling that the season, Sewell probably when Decker comes back, he'll probably go back to left tackle. Sewell move to the right. But I think the offseason window will have to make a decision on this. I don't agree with you. You don't trade him because all of a sudden you take a position of strength and it's suddenly weakened. Right. Because this is obviously the best position group on the Lions. It's not even close. They have an all-pro center. They have a Pro Bowl left tackle. They have a guy at right in Sewell. If he goes back to right tackle, they have a guy there who they say could be a Hall of Fame level talent. And then you got two very solid guards who are they're not Pro Bowl type guards, but they're legit NFL players. And Vitae with Johnson, whatever his name is. So it's a good problem to have, but history tells us, Greg, that the Lions will find a way to screw it up. I guess, as you mentioned, it's such a Lions thing to talk about here. I guess that's the fear. Most organizations would be able to smooth this out. They could figure something out, or one guy would move for the sake of the team. But go by Lions history, they'll screw it up. And I know I shouldn't say that about a brand new regime, but, burn once, shame on me. Burn for 50 years, shame on whatever. So,
well, you have when you have such a bad defense, sometimes the only thing you can do, Al, when you've got a defense as bad as the Lions have, is to do whatever you can to keep the other team from having the football. You mentioned earlier about Campbell going for it on fourth down because he's got such a bad defense. Well, that's true. That's 100% true. But with this offensive line, if they can establish some sort of a running game, how long? How many years have we said that? But if they can run the football and grind out 5-6 minute drives and keep the other team's offense, even if they don't score, even if they just, it's like milking the clock. If they can just keep the other team from having the football very much, that'll do a lot toward keeping the points against down. So I hear what you're saying about Goff not going deep because he doesn't have the people to go deep. Well, I think what the best cure for this is I don't care. Throw to the running backs all you want. I don't care if Swift gets 70 catches this year. I don't care. But if you can do that and run the football a little bit, which they've shown spurts of that they can, I thought they gashed the 49ers, by the way, in week 1 several times between the tackles. I mean, they just between the guards almost, really, just straight right through. It was almost like that was like the 49ers' weakness was the interior line against the run. But if the Lions can keep the football out of the other team's hands, if they win games this year, Al, they'll probably win them like 17-16 or something, where they've been able to kind of control the game, control the football, time possession, and win that way. They're not going to win games 38-37. They don't have that kind of offense.
Right. Yeah. I just brought up the rushing stats. They're averaging 112 yards per game and 5.2 yards for clip.
Yeah,
that's actually pretty darn good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Especially the 5 yards to carry. That's great.
Yeah.
The issue is that the defense is so bad that they have to start throwing the ball a lot, as we saw, especially in the first game, where Goff ended up throwing the ball 56 times.
And the passing game is their weak. They're not. That's not the kind of team they are. They don't. And Campbell has said it too.
It's not Goff's strength either. He's not a guy who's going to. He doesn't have the arm of Matthew Stafford. Right. He doesn't. I don't think he has the cojones either when it comes to throwing the ball and But I guess with Stafford, he knew he had the arm where he could throw the ball 60 yards downfield and force it into a guy.
Yeah.
Goff doesn't have that kind of arm, and Goff isn't going to take those kind of chances. Stafford could throw the ball 60 yards downfield on the wrong off one leg.
Right.
Goff can't do that.
Right.
And so that's why we're seeing this. He's averaging like 6 or 7 yards on the tip. That's not very much.
Right.
But considering the Lions, the state of the Lions offense right now, I don't think we're going to ask for much more. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's I have a feeling the next few weeks of this, Greg, it's going to get uglier before it gets anywhere near better. It's going to be a bad season. I know you said you think they're going to win 3 games. I think 5. Just because it's the NFL and it's hard to win only 3 games, but it's going to be a very, very, very long season. And right now, I can't wait for training camp for the Wings and the Pistons to start because there's a little bit more encouraging things to talk about when it comes to them. Because right now, the Lions, it's I feel like in some ways we're just rehashing the same stuff we've talked about since we started this podcast like 12 years ago. We've been having the same discussions for the most part, just different names,
right?
Different seasons, but same issues for so many years now, and it's just kind of depressing to think about when you put it that way, because this is going to be an ugly season. This is, I guess the one we weren't sold a bill of goods for one, and we weren't told this was going to be a good team, and also the 2 first-round draft picks, which is like which is what we're all gunning for the next 2 years of this team, is the first-round draft picks, and are going to have at least with the Lions zone a very, very good one. So a very, very high one, I guess I should say. But God, this is depressing. It really is. So. Is there anything else you want to cover about the Lions before we touch a little bit of the Tigers to wrap this up?
No, I think we can switch.
Let's close the door to goddamn Lions. Let's lock the cage, to make the putt a little better there. Okay. Today, news broke about the Tigers. So on the last podcast, we talked about how the Tigers had started to shuffle the front office and set a few guys off the pasture like Dave Littlefield, who had been their player development guru for over a decade, I think. Well, today, Cody Staverhagen of The Athletic posted on Twitter that the Tigers continue to shake up their player development staff. The Tigers are looking to hire a new and obviously more progressive, more analytically minded VP of player development. So to give whoever this new person is going to be, give him the opportunity to hire whoever the hell he wants and to mold the department in how he wants it done. It was announced that the Tigers let 11 staff members go at the end of the minor league season. I guess because the only thing going on right now with the minor leagues is AAA is still going on, but anything below AAA, their season is over. And the Tigers let 11 people go, including 3 minor league coordinators, the director of Latin American player development, and I believe 7 minor league coaches. A lot of these roving instructor types were all let go. It seems, Greg, the Tigers are actually starting to walk the walk and are leaning hard into analytics. This is a team that for decades were known to be pretty damn stodgy. They were stuck in their development ways. They really were, well, Dave Dombrowski is completely anti-analytical in the moves he makes. And this team has long been behind the curve when it comes to advanced metrics.
Right.
So it was kind of a shock to see the Tigers just go such a huge shakeup in the foundation of how they develop players. Because as we mentioned before we started recording, the Tigers don't exactly have the best track record in developing position players, especially if they weren't a number 1 draft pick, you very rarely saw a Tiger minor leaguer come out of nowhere as a position player.
Right.
So to see the organization finally decide, it's time to just start over with how we're doing things, because it hasn't been working for the last 20 years, if not longer. I mean, think about it, Greg. The last time the Tigers were really developing a sizable amount of young players that weren't just also first-round draft picks, you'd have to go back to the late 70s with the core of the 84 team.
Right.
So, because after that, I mean, realistically, who the hell is they? It's been a series of Brennan Bosches and Matt Andersons, and when their best player development guys for the most part of it is someone like Nick Castellanos, who couldn't wait to get out of Detroit because they could never figure out a position to play him. It says volumes about how. And plus, look at the guys who have been coming up over the years, Greg. A bunch of guys who can't take a walk and have no power and don't hit for average. So it was like, wow, talk about 3 strikes and you're out. It's about time this team started to lead into, at least lead into the future. Look at the future. This is where baseball's going, and it's just been frustrating for so many years to see this team continually bring guys up. Remember, we were told how good Christian Stewart was going to be. Wasn't he like their minor league player of the year 2 or 3 years running?
Yeah.
And he came up to the bigs. And we were told this guy's a huge power bat and he takes a walk. Well, he couldn't do either when he came to the big leagues. So, guys like that were the final straw when it came to player development, it looks like. So, at the very, very least, they needed to shake things up, and to Alavila's credit, maybe Chris Illich's credit, and whoever else is involved with this, they are finally biting the bullet, cleaning house, and say we need to do things differently.
Exactly, and I think you're seeing more of this is. I think that we talked about this last week. Yeah, the AJ Hinch factor is just kind of continues to he continues to put his imprint on the program, and I think that's good. I think that Hinch has exceeded expectations in terms of where he's taken this roster. I know he's got the opt out. I think he's going to stay. Yeah. I think the Tigers are going to hopefully lock him up maybe as soon as after this year. Maybe they'll tear up his contract from what he signed last year.
That'd be a good idea if you ask me.
And just say, look, this guy's going to be here for 5-6 years. I mean, he's young. He's still young, and despite the fact that he's got a lot of experience behind him, he's relatively young as far as managers go. He's obviously very smart. I mean, he's extremely smart, and he seems to really know how to relate to players. And players seem to really respond to him. And, what he's done with guys like Badu, for example, Castro, I could go on and on. Guys who just, you kind of look at it and say, would that have happened under Ron Gardenhire? I don't know. I don't think so. Right. He's been really something else. So I think what you're seeing now, Al, is the organization, and this doesn't happen very often, by the way, but the organization is taking the lead from the manager and kind of becoming an extension of that. Now, it's true that when they hired Gardenhire in 2017, October 2017, they said at the time, okay, we're going to make this commitment to, as you said, analytics. Okay, fine.
Right.
But now they are they seem to want to just do more than just dip their toes into it. And you've got a lot of young guys now, and we've talked many times on this program about how young these GMs are in baseball anymore. You know, when you and I were following baseball, starting to follow baseball in the 70s, you know, there wasn't a general manager that was under 60 years old. And these guys,
I think Jim Campbell was born looking 80 years old.
Right.
We really did, yeah.
They were all these cigar chomping older guys who were grizzled. They had the leather faces, and you know they were hardened. And now you've got these GMs, Al, that are in their early to mid 30s. Some of them in their 40s is almost old anymore. These are young minds now, younger minds who've come up with the game and with a totally different perspective, a totally different education about the game, and you know, in the computer age, and now they've leveraged that into this, you know, like it or not, this very analytics driven game. But the beauty of Hinch is that he doesn't get caught up in that too much. He doesn't let that dictate things. But I think what you're on a day-to-day basis. But I think what you're seeing now with these moves, Al, is an extension of the changes they made earlier a few weeks ago when they made all those front office changes, and now we're seeing the fallout of that. Right. And you mentioned before we went on the air that it makes sense that this would happen given what they did a few weeks ago. But I think the team is taking on the I don't say the personality, but the mentality of the manager. AJ Hinch is he's the guy. He's the power. He's the power wielder. Let's face it. He is. If there's a power struggle, he's winning it. Huh. Now there may not be a struggle at all. I mean, Al Avila might be totally okay with this, but if there is a power struggle, Hinch is winning it, and he should be, because he's the one that's directly responsible for getting this team within 4 games of 5. Who would have thought the Tigers would be 4 games within 500 on September 21st? I didn't. Right. I mean, I thought they'd win 70 games, but never be anywhere near 500. Well, they may win 77, 78 games now. And when you look at the roster and you look at the injuries to the pitching staff and the injuries to some of the position players, it's amazing what he's done. So it makes sense that he would be the power broker of the team. He'll never say it. He's not that kind of a guy. But behind the scenes, you can't tell me that his and you also can't tell me that when it comes to the hot stove league this year, that AJ Hinch won't be in that room with everybody else making these decisions about who we're going to sign, who we're going to trade for. Whoever AJ wants, whoever he wants, the Tigers are going to try to get. I mean, that's just the way it is. And that's the way it should be, because for the first time in a long time, the Tigers have a manager who is a difference maker. And there aren't too many of those in Major League Baseball. There really aren't. I know I go on and on about Kevin Cash. People are probably sick of hearing me talk about Kevin Cash. There aren't too many other guys than Cash, as far as I'm concerned. Dusty Baker, who I got to give the guy Dusty Baker just wins. He just, everywhere he goes, he wins. Now, yes, he's got talent in Houston. I get it. But Dusty Baker is one of the best as well. But a guy like Hinch, there aren't too many. He's a difference maker. I mean, he is, I don't know, there are too many other guys now that could have come in with this situation and won 70 and been 74 and 78 at this juncture.
Right. Yeah. And that's the basis being that they're only 4 games under 500. I never would have expected that this year. No, I was expecting. Here's
the other thing I like about Hinch too, and about the Tigers, is that how many times this year, after the 9 including the 9-24 start, let's include it. Right. How many times this year have we all thought, okay, now the wheels are going to come off? You know, whether it's because of a gut punch loss or 3 or 4 losses in a row, you say, oh, here it comes now. This is where the wheels come off now. Guys get hurt. They maybe lose 6 out of 8 games. They say, here we go now. Okay, this is what we expected. And every single time they pick themselves up off the mat, They did it in Tampa last week. They had a gut punch of a loss on Friday night, gut punch. And they come back and they win the next two games against the best team, one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league, and all of baseball, frankly. And they just, in Tampa, just, okay, we'll brush ourselves off, dust ourselves off, and go out and win. And that's what I like about this team. And Hint says that. We get up. We have short memories. We get up. If we get knocked down, we come right back up. I don't know how many times I have been proven wrong thinking, okay, this is it. This is where they go off the rails. No, this is where they go off the rails. No, and here we are, September 21st, and they really haven't gone off the rails. After the 9-24 start, they've been, that's what's impressive to me.
And this is a team that's been hit with some severe injuries.
They don't lose 8, 9, 10 in a row. They don't go on these long losing streaks. Right. And if they lose a few in a row, they come back and win a few in a row. Yeah. And that's why they've been able to stay within 500.
Yep. Yeah, and with a piecemeal lineup and a piecemeal rotation at this point. I mean, if you told me they were doing this about, considering the injuries they've dealt with this year, I would have thought, oh, God, this team would have fallen apart at the end of the year like they had the last few.
Right.
But they're 7-3 in their last 10. They're peaking at the right time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's amazing to see what they've done with this team. And I think you're onto something with this. Is what we're seeing going on in the Tigers front office is a bit of a flex. Is AJ Hitch flexing? He's got the power in the relationship right now. And it's refreshing. It's just refreshing to see the Tigers have a young manager who embraces analytics, but also seems to have his thumb on the clubhouse and he's making all the right moves. It's not going to go perfectly for Hitch, never does for anybody. But over the long haul, he's going to do far more right things than wrong things. And I think it's going to be a big part of why this franchise turns itself around. At least that's what I hope. I think you feel the same way. All right, let's start wrapping things up. Who's your jerk of the week?
I thought about this, and I'm torn between a couple of things, but I think what I'm going to go with is the NFL's, I think, overreach when it comes to penalizing teams for celebrations. I know that they've got the moniker of NFL stands for the No Fun League.
Right.
I just think that they just take this taunting thing and this celebration thing. Now, conversely, I think the players have taken it too far too.
Yeah.
And maybe they're probably both working against each other. But I think the league, Al, just needs to kind of back off a little bit. And I don't know where this stuff really, what harm it really does. Now, sometimes it may delay the game. And I know that sometimes it can be obnoxious if a guy gets an interception and all of his teammates have to run to the end zone and pose for a picture. I get it. Right. But, I think the league needs to just kind of, understand that this is what's so ironic about this. They are one of the biggest entertainment industry to me in the world, the NFL. It's almost an entertainment first, a sports second. And I don't know why they've never really seemed to want to embrace that part of the game. They've never really wanted to fully embrace that they've got some, and they've had some colorful players in the past who've been kind of suppressed. But I just don't know why they feel like they need to try to legislate this. There's so many other things in the league that's wrong with the league. And I don't think this is one of them. So I'm not going to sit here and give you specific examples. It's just what I've noticed the last couple of weeks. The first 2 weeks, there's been a lot of this, suppression of expressing yourself. And I just think that it's, I don't know why the NFL just doesn't try to fully embrace that they're an entertainment, thing.
Yeah, it's a good point. The refs do seem awfully trigger happy, especially when it comes with the taunting calls.
Right.
There's been a ridiculous amount of those. And I'm with you there. It's like it's an entertainment league, and touchdown celebrations and things like that don't bother me in the least. What's the old story? If you don't want people to celebrate, stop them. Keep them from doing things. Right. So it's the same thing in baseball with the unwritten rule stuff, which I hate.
Oh, yeah, right.
Oh my God, he flipped his bat. We gotta throw at the head of the next guy. That kind of crap.
Right,
so
right.
I'm with you there. But you know something, Greg? That's if the referees are going trigger happy on all this stuff, what's coming from above. That's coming from the NFL offices.
Right.
And so it makes you wonder what the hell is going on there, where they figure like, oh my God, we can't have celebrating. So I'm with you there. All right, I haven't gone off on the local Detroit media lately, just because there's been so many other things to rant about.
Yeah.
But there was a column I read last night after the game from Jeff Seidel, the Freep, who we've ranted about before, that is essentially a feature writer trying to cover sports, to be a columnist.
Right.
And the headline alone, I just rolled my eyes with this latest column. Detroit Lions unveil their blueprint for success and show they're at least halfway there.
Right.
We're 2 games into the season. and they're 0-2, and they've been essentially blown out twice. And yet we have this fluffy feel-good column saying, we saw the first half of the Packers game. That's the Lions' blueprint. Holy crap! Let's hold off a little bit on this stuff. I know, as you mentioned earlier, what else are we going to talk about? But but I found this column absolutely ludicrous. Usually when it comes to ludicrous columns, I think it's coming from Monterez.
Right.
But Seidel coming with this silly pap.
Yeah.
Saying, it was a great first half, and they had a great plan, and this is how things are going to be. This is the blueprint. We're 2 games into the season. It's too early to make any kind of black or white statement in regards to how the team's going to come about. And I just found let's not get ahead of ourselves here. We're 2 games into the year, and you're saying this is the blueprint. This is how things are going to be. This is how they're what they're doing, want to do. I don't know. And the thing is that this blueprint, it can immediately change depending on the talent that comes in. They might, the draft comes and they might get the top quarterback coming out of college. They may start flinging the ball around 45 times a game because that's what the talent tells you to do. So to say that this is the blueprint for victory, that's dumb. It really is. So that's my jerk of the week, Jeff Seidel, for coming with this essentially fluff piece, saying that this is the future of the Lions. When we're 2 freaking games into an organization that gave 6-year contracts to guys. It was absolutely ridiculous. It really was.
I saw that one. I kind of rolled my eyes about that one as well.
Yeah. All right. Let's start wrapping things up, because I know you probably got a cold cocktail waiting for you. So,
just about.
So why don't you get out the thank yous and what fors and all the fun stuff?
Well, want to again, we'll try to come at you with the guest on October the 5th, and we'll keep you posted on that. Follow us on Twitter at the Knee Jerks. Follow me on Twitter at Greg Eno, and of course read my WordPress Out of Bounds blog, which I didn't plug at the top of the show. Just check that out. I got a new column pretty much every week. This one is about Al Kaline and his pursuit of 3,000 hits versus Miggy's pursuit of 3,000 hits, and kind of the comparisons there. So read that if you would, please. And want to just thank my lovely wife Sharon for putting up with this nonsense every 2 weeks, and for you, to you, Big Al, for making Tuesday night so gosh darn fun.
Yes, I want to thank you, Greg, for putting up all the technical difficulties we've had to deal with since I've replaced my computer. We got a late start today because I could not figure out a few audio issues we were having. It looks like my camera's cut out, and I'm like, oh, God. Well, hopefully we'll get all this situated by the time our next podcast comes around, but thank you for putting up with it. I want to give a shout out to Linda, who is working in the ER tonight, saving lives despite people doing their damnedest not to care about saving their own lives. I don't even need to get into that. And I also want to give a shout out to Bean, who stopped barking. So.
Yes, just in time.
Just in time. He was going nuts. All right, Greg, with that, let's get the hell out of here. Before I go, I got to tell you, if you want to listen to the show, obviously, if there's more than one option, we are available in all the usual places where you can find podcasts: Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon Music, Deezer, Radio Public. TheKneeJerks.net is the homepage. That's where you can find all the show notes. That's where you can directly download the MP3 to do whatever you want. That's where all the links to all the social media stuff can be found. TheKneeJerks.net. Please go there if you want to learn more about the Knee Jerks. I'll take you right to, if you want to go to Greg's Twitter, it's linked there, that sort of thing. Other than that, I'm just looking forward to 2 weeks from now. Hopefully we'll have more to talk about than the Lions. We'll probably be able to do a post-mortem on the Tigers, and hopefully we'll have some early camp stuff when it comes to the Red Wings and Pistons. So hopefully we'll have a little more to talk about than yelling about the Lions for an hour. So until that time, this is Al Beaton saying, see you then, and good evening, good luck, and aloha.
Ciao, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks.